Is astrology a guide to aid us in mastering the universe? This is the Cosmic Community Podcast with Galactic Ambassador Stacey Dredd. This astrology report is for the week of February 10th, and it is a big one. We have a big couple weeks ahead of us, a big few weeks, I should say, because we have entered into the next eclipse cycle. And that means that we're going to be having the new moons and the full moons in Aquarius and Leo, and this is going to be closely into the north and the south lunar nodes. And when you have the lunar node and the sun come together, that is when you get these eclipses, and they are felt very strongly because they carry with them so much energy. So actually it's a week away. February 17th is the new moon in Aquarius, and this is going to be a wham bam thank you ma'am type of new moon because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus and is the sign of liberation and earth-shattering things and breaking free from the old and making change, permanent change, and a permanent effect on the future. This eclipse season, also known as just being a wild card time. We're going to have this new moon in Aquarius, this eclipse is coming up, the solar eclipse on the 17th. It's going to be in a square with Uranus. Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius, which makes that sign stronger, and a square can be a bit of a challenging event. It can be something that sort of takes us by surprise. Aquarius, Uranus, already doing that, and the wild card of the eclipse season. So if you haven't already, buckle in for the ride. But we're going to start, of course, with the astrology of this week, and that brings us to February 10th. Tuesday begins with the moon entering Sagittarius, and the moon creates the mood, brings about a lot of the feelings and the experience that we're having internally. Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's a mutable fire sign and tends to be a very flexible, adventurous, a seeker type of energy that wants to, find things and look for things and find the wisdom and speak about the truth and their own personal truths and be philosophical. And it's about higher thinking and education. And so that is how we enter this week. And also this morning we had Venus move into a new sign, and that is Venus movement into Pisces. This is a little bit easier place for Venus to be. Venus is our heart. It is also money, our value systems, pleasurable things. And Pisces is a sign where it actually becomes exalted. What's known as exalted in astrology is when a planet moves into a sign where it operates and functions very well. So we have our heart in Pisces now where it operates a little bit easier. Leaving Aquarius, Aquarius is a big energy. Okay, we're going to talk a lot more about that because we have more Aquarius coming up this week. And of course, that all leads us up to that February 17th new moon solar eclipse. But Venus, she just kind of gets thrown into a lot of directions in Aquarius. And when she moves into Pisces, has a little bit easier time. It's more emotional and it's a feminine sign. And so you get the feminine planet of Venus getting more comfortable. But Pisces is also a sign that's ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is exalted right now also in Cancer. So you get this really nice Venus and also ruled by Jupiter in a really good place. And it just puts the two best planets into great alignment, and they will actually come into a nice trine later on. That's going to be early next week, actually. And that is going to be a moment where we harness good luck. and support each other on an emotional level. Water signs bring out a lot of emotion. So you've got your heart in a water sign now. You're going to be experiencing a few more feelings. And then the moon on the night of February 10th, 6:48 p.m., T-squares the nodes of destiny. They are at the north node, 10 degrees of Pisces, the south node, 10 degrees of Virgo. And the nodes of destiny are called that because they bring in fateful activity. So this T-square at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, or I guess it would be about 10 degrees, between 9 and 10 of Sagittarius, is going to bring about circumstances that may indeed have a long-term effect on the future. So pay attention to the evening of the 10th. As we move into February 11th, the moon is making a sextile, an inconjunct, a trine, a sextile, a little bit of a mixed bag as far as the energy goes, because Sagittarius, as the moon moves through, is also in that square to Pisces. And Pisces has a lot going on right now. We just mentioned Venus moved there. Mercury is there, and Mercury is our mind. This is the way we think. Also in this more emotional, watery state where it's dissolving more of the details. See, in Pisces, it's more about connection to source and spirituality and intuition and feeling into things. And Mercury feels a little convoluted in that type of energy, but our mind is experiencing this dissolvement. And that is in a square to Sagittarius, also the north and south node, as I mentioned, and Saturn at the final degrees of Pisces. So Sagittarius and Virgo and Gemini, they've all been squared off, oppositioning to all of this Pisces energy. It's been a lot, and this is actually the last time the moon is going to move through Sagittarius with Saturn in Pisces, but this Mercury is getting ready to retrograde, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. But on the 11th, the main aspect for the day is the sun in a sextile to Chiron, and that brings about some really positive healing. It's at 23 degrees of Aquarius and 23 degrees of Aries. This is where the healing comes in. There is some positive movement on the wounds that we carry, and it can also bring about just a feeling of being more confident. As we move to February 12th, this is when we get a little more Mercury action. Our mind gets stimulated as it moves across the north node of destiny. This is going to be the first of 3 times that we see Mercury make this movement over the North Node due to the retrograde it's going to do here in Pisces. And this is going to indeed bring about more information, more circumstances, more experiences that are shaping our long-term future. When you work with the North Node, it's the things that are trying to come in to our life. It's the direction that we are headed. It's our future. So as we see this first activation between Mercury and the North Node on February 12th, we're going to start seeing the setup to this story, how this is going to be shaping our long-term future, what types of communication, Mercury things, communication, thinking, talking, sharing, expressing through language and through text, that this is going to be a strong time to pay attention to. It's not going to be a complete cycle until April, because that's when the retrograde is going to, be finished. But now we're getting set up for it. We're getting set up for the thought process. Good time to pay attention. As we move throughout the day on February 12th, we get a change to the mood. the moon moves out of Sagittarius into Capricorn. This happens at 12:44 p.m. All my times are West Coast times because I am in Oregon. So if you live somewhere else, you will have to do just a little bit of math to see the exact time of when this mood change is going to come in. So about mid-afternoon, we're going to feel a shift of the energy, and Capricorn is an earth sign. So we get a more grounded type of flow. We become more serious. Capricorn is a serious, ambitious type of energy and likes to work, focus on getting things done and putting the work in. This is where we can focus on more of our goals, more of our ambitions, just feel a little more ambitious about things. I personally love a Capricorn moon. I make a long to-do list when it first comes in, and I love it. I can tend to get so much more done when there's a Capricorn moon. It's all about work, and it's definitely a little drier, a little less connected to emotional states, right? So you can kind of focus a little more on the other activity. And then in the evening of February 12th, we get Mars, the warrior god, in conjunct to Jupiter. And Jupiter is kind of the odd man out right now. Jupiter's farthest out, kind of away from the rest of the planets, in a retrograde, exalted in Cancer and loving the time there, focusing on bringing more attention into the home and the family and Cancerian things, safety and security. So there is some type of physical action. This is at 16 degrees of Aquarius and 16 of Cancer, and Mars is making some kind of adjustment because this in conjunct 5 signs apart. It's not an active type of astrological aspect. It's more of a passive type of aspect where we sit with things and we just adjust to it. So some big adjustments coming in on the evening of the 12th to the physical circumstances. And this could very much be about the home and the family since it's involving Jupiter. And as we move to February 13th, this is probably the biggest day of the week because we see Saturn move out of Pisces across the 0 degree point of Aries. And this is setting us up for a conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. Neptune is at 0 degrees, 26 minutes of Aries. And on the 20th of February, these two planets are going to make an exact conjunction. It's one of the biggest astrological aspects happening this year. Next week is huge. We have the solar eclipse to talk about and this big conjunction. So everything is like kind of getting set up and leading up to these big energies that are coming in. And Saturn moving into Aries at 5:11 p.m. on the 13th is going to bring about some huge energetic shifts for the next 2.5 years as Saturn moves through Aries, and also is going to be starting this new cycle for the next 35 years for Saturn to be at this 0 degree point of Aries, the very first degree point of the zodiac. New beginnings, new cycles, bringing in a new world, as a lot of people would say. There is something about Saturn that is about the structure of everything too. So a new structure comes in here. But, Saturn has a little harder time in Aries because Aries is a very young energy. And Saturn represents the old kind of wise daddy figure. So you get kind of the young Aries teenager type of energy, quick and just kind of making decisions really fast. And that conflicts with what Saturn wants, which is to slow things down and to consider things and make rational, realistic decisions based on some slow moving thought processes. And Aries shoots first, ask questions later. So as we move with this Saturn through Aries, it's might be a good time for pulling the trigger on certain things. And Saturn is going to keep this energy of Aries grounded. So for the next 2.5 years, we'll be experiencing Saturn and Aries. And this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune next week is all about the reality of our responsibilities and our real world and the karma in our life, Saturn, with the dreams and the hopes and desires and the connection to our intuition and bringing things in through source energy, Neptune. So 2 very different type of energies, Saturn, Neptune, both in a very, very strong fire sign of Aries. The initiator wants to start things, let's get this started. So wow, by the 13th, we are seeing a lot of new energy come in. And this is going to be good for, there's another thing to this. There's a mutual reception between Saturn in Aries and Mars in Aquarius. Okay, those are the opposite ruling planets. Mars rules Aries, Saturn rules Aquarius. So when they're in each other's signs, they support each other too. And that is helpful. Aries is going to be all about the work being put in. The responsibility of Saturn for the next 2.5 years is going to be all on the self. Aries represents me, myself. And so we're going to be working a lot on ourselves and having a lot of personal new beginnings. The moon moves into Aquarius on the 14th. Again, shifting the vibe, shifting the mood at 11:16 p.m. So we basically have the full day on Saturday with that Capricorn moon. Great for getting down to business and working on things. And then when we move into Aquarius, it's more about innovation and being a little more radical about things, having things, just having changes and making changes for the future and being more futuristic thinking. There's also a very electrifying effect to Aquarius, and it can have a big effect on our nervous system. So make sure you're doing your meditations and taking care of yourself as we approach this very, very big week that's coming up next week and the solar eclipse. Very much take care of yourself. Make sure that you are taking time out for yourself and finding those moments to come to a nice point where you feel like you can make good decisions for yourself. We're not just being electric in every moment, and we're grounding ourselves. And as the 15th rolls in, the moon is going to make a few actions this day, but it's not a super busy lunar day. But what does take place on this day is a little bit of a volatile, unpredictable, intense type of energy. The sun at 27 Aquarius is going to square Uranus, and we've already talked all about it. So this is going to shake things up more. It's going to bring about change and revolution, personal revolution to our own identity, the sun, and our personal focus in life, the sun. And this is just so strong with the approach of the moon into Aquarius and the looking out at next week. It's going to be an opener. Sunday is the opener, the grand opening to this next big, huge week that's coming up. And so this is actually the closing square between the sun and Uranus. So we've already made the opening square, the opposition, and now this is the closing square. So there's something to this sun square Uranus that is that it's closing out a little bit of a cycle. It's helping us to come to a completion point, but it's very critical. It couldn't be quite disruptive, and it's a little bit of crazy energy, in fact, with everything that's going on. And this is a moment, too, where we have more of that personal revelation and revolution and break free from anything that we are needing to be free of. And on the 16th of February, we have Mercury coming into a trine with Jupiter. And I mentioned Venus is going to follow this up. And as everything moves across this 16-degree point of Pisces, it's going to trine Jupiter. And Jupiter is the planet of wisdom and good luck. And a trine is very supportive, but a trine is neither positive nor negative. And what will be, but you can be sure that when Jupiter is involved, it's going to have our highest, greatest good and most benevolence in mind. So this is actually the first of 3 movements that we're going to see Mercury trining Jupiter because of this retrograde that it's, starting up. So it's the start of a new story here. What is coming in? What are we being supported? What wisdom is coming in that's helping us to work through this Mercury retrograde? It can be hard for Mercury to really grasp the details. So lean into the intuition, lean into any form of spirituality you practice, and have faith. Faith is another thing that Jupiter represents. We have a connection to source. This can be a very inspiring moment on the 16th, even with this strong connection to source, helping us to remain hopeful and dig into our intuition during an extremely powerful time in the astrology. And we're going to come back next week and have so much more to talk about. And I just appreciate you so much being tuned in here with me, your galactic ambassador, Stacy Dredd, here in the Cosmic Community Astrology. And I hope you have an amazing week. And I will talk to you again very soon. Take care. Peace. Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Community Podcast. More can be found at kpov.org/thecosmiccommunity.